Hello there, friends. My name is Melonii, and today I'm going to tell you a true story about the time I almost died. I usually try to keep my channel fun and with lighter topics, but with today being the 8-year anniversary of my near-death experience and it being so close to spooky Halloween, I figured this would be a good video to make. Not only that, but I also want to raise awareness for blood donation. Lately, I've been seeing advertisements on social media about local hospitals being short on blood supply, so I hope I can help encourage others to donate blood by sharing my experience. Quick disclaimer, this video will have disturbing descriptions of blood. If you know this topic is going to bother you, please watch one of my happier videos. Gotta make sure you take care of yourself. I don't want to accidentally traumatize or trigger anyone. This story starts on October 12th, 2011. I was 17 years old at the time, and I was constantly missing school due to being sick. Doctors at the time couldn't figure out why I got sick so frequently, but they tried their best to do what they could to help me. Noticing that I seemed to catch strep pretty often and my throat was constantly swollen, they decided to remove my tonsils to see if it would help. Tonsillectomies are usually really easy surgeries. They remove the tonsils while cauterizing the area, basically burning it to keep it closed instead of stitching it shut. It is extremely rare for someone to die from a tonsillectomy. However, it does happen, and I was almost one of those rare cases. Back to the date of October 12th. That was the day of my surgery. Everything seemed fine. Had to wake up super early to get to the surgery center in the city, which was about an hour drive away. So that wasn't fun, but we were used to it because we lived in the middle of nowhere back then. We had asked the surgeon what we should do if I started bleeding, and the guy was super arrogant and just answered, "She won't bleed, she'll be fine." It's better to be prepared for all scenarios though, so we kept asking until he said something like, "Just gargle salt water and suck on an ice cube." We didn't actually expect anything bad to happen, so we took that as an answer and left it at that. When I went home, everything seemed to be fine. I still had pain, but I figured that was normal since they literally burned my throat for surgery. Days passed, and I didn't seem to have any issues, until 5 days later on October 17th. That morning I woke up around 7 a.m. with the sensation of choking. When I sat up, I noticed my bed and my clothes were covered in blood. I remember trying to cover my mouth with my hands, but blood had been pouring out so fast that the blood just covered my hands and continued to keep pouring from my mouth like a fountain. I ran to the bathroom and stood over the toilet, letting the blood pour into the toilet in hopes of keeping the floor clean, although by then the bathroom already kind of looked like a murder scene. Since I was stuck in the bathroom with the waterfall of blood continuing to pour from my mouth nonstop, I knew there was no chance in hell that gargling salt water or sucking on ice cubes was going to help me. My mom called for an ambulance, but since we lived in a rural area, it took about 15 minutes for them to get there. By the time they arrived and then took me to the ER, the bleeding had stopped. They checked my throat at the ER, but just shrugged. They said they couldn't find what was wrong and suggested that I be more careful with the food that I was eating until my throat was fully healed. I had already been careful. I had only been eating foods like puddings and soups. They sent me home without treating the problem because in their mind, the bleeding had stopped, which meant that I was better, even though I wasn't. My parents weren't happy with this, of course, so they called the surgeon that did my surgery and asked for a second opinion from him. I was able to go in for an appointment later that day, so that's what we did. We went to the appointment, though, and the surgeon took a quick look at my mouth, said that he saw nothing out of the ordinary, and claimed that he didn't believe any of this had actually happened, and accused us of lying. Luckily, both my mom and I had taken pictures because we had already had a feeling that we should gather proof in case something like this were to happen. My mom showed him pictures she took of our blood-covered bathroom, as well as pictures of me also covered in blood. Once he saw the pictures, he believed us, but kinda just shrugged and had the same conclusion as the ER, saying something along the lines of, "She's not bleeding anymore, so she's probably fine." As you can probably guess by now, I was not fine. As each day passed, I started to feel more and more miserable. I stopped eating. I felt like I didn't have much strength. I spent 4 more days just laying in bed doing nothing because I didn't have the strength or will to do anything. Then Friday, October 21st came. It was around 5 a.m. I woke up choking on a nonstop flow of blood again. I didn't have the energy to run to my mom's room and wake her up, so I grabbed my cell phone and called her about 5 or 6 times to wake her up, as I made my way back to the bathroom to try and keep the blood off the floor again. As my mom called for an ambulance, I became weaker and weaker, unable to stand anymore. I sat on the floor and kept a washcloth over my mouth to try and keep the blood from pouring everywhere, although the washcloth didn't work so well. The more time that passed, I started to feel really lightheaded. I had been keeping myself bent over so gravity would keep the blood out of my throat, but as I got more lightheaded, that became increasingly difficult, so I leaned back against the wall to try and keep myself from passing out. Doing this made me swallow some of the blood instead of it pouring out of my mouth, but I'll spare you the gross details on that. To put it in the most accurate but non-descriptive way possible, the human body is not meant to drink blood, and it will try to force it back out if too much blood is swallowed. It was absolutely the most disgusting experience of my life. I don't know how long it took, but eventually the ambulance arrived. One of the guys asked me if I could stand and tried to help me out of the bathroom, but I ended up fainting after a few steps. The weirdest part about this experience, though, is that despite fainting, I could still feel everything and I could still hear everything around me. I could feel the guy when he picked me up and carried me to the stretcher near the front door of the house, and I could hear everyone in the ambulance saying that they would have to drive me to the hospital in the city instead of the local hospital for some reason. When I got to the hospital, the bleeding had stopped again, but I was still out. The ER in the city took my situation very serious, thankfully, and they didn't send me back home. I could hear and feel them moving around frantically, hooking me up to all sorts of devices and giving me IVs. Every 15 to 30 minutes or so, they would also bring me heated blankets because the lack of blood caused my temperature to drop to dangerous levels. I was told that every time they brought a heated blanket and put it on me that I had the biggest smile on my face. So I guess that's one cute thing to mention despite the bad situation. They also gave me heated socks, and if you know anything about hospital socks, they are the best socks. They're always super soft, and they also have those little grip things on the bottom, which feels amazing to walk around on. Anyways, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, so back to the story. Due to the surgeons being busy with the other surgeries and the fact that I had stopped bleeding at that moment, they continued to give me heated blankets and tried to keep me stable until a surgeon could see me. It was hours of waiting, but somehow I pushed through it. A different surgeon from the guy that originally did my surgery checked my throat and was able to figure out the problem. During my surgery, they missed cauterizing one of my blood vessels because it had somehow shriveled back. It bled internally for days until it would have so much blood that it would burst, explaining the sudden flood of blood pouring from my mouth. When it seemingly stopped bleeding, it was actually just bleeding internally again. And then it burst again on the 21st. Upon finding this issue, the surgeon that found the problem decided that he would fix the problem himself. So he brought me back for another surgery and cauterized the blood vessel. To reach the blood vessel, he had to dig deeper into the tissue, so I actually have a fairly noticeable hole-like scar in my throat now, but I won't show any gross pictures of that. After the second surgery to fix my problem, I finally woke up in the recovery area. I remember it being abnormally dark back there for some reason. There was a lady on the computer to the right of me. I noticed that one of the IVs was hooked to a blood bag, but I had bad eyesight, so I couldn't see what it said. I asked her what my blood type was out of curiosity, but she said that she didn't know, but that they were giving me O-negative blood. Then I fell asleep. When I woke up again, it was nighttime and I was in a normal hospital room, but they were still in the middle of giving me a blood transfusion. I can't remember how many bags of blood they gave me, but I was hooked up to a blood bag all night and the next morning. A nurse came in after I woke up that night to give me some morphine for the pain of my throat being cauterized all over again. They had told me that I was lucky to be alive because I had come extremely close to dying that day due to blood loss. I started to recover really fast after the blood transfusion. They sent me home the next evening, and by the time Halloween came around, they cleared me to start eating harder foods and said that I can enjoy some Halloween candy as well, which was pretty nice. I remember the first thing we did after leaving my checkup appointment that day was stopping by Subway to get a sandwich. And after almost a whole month of living on puddings and soups, it was like food sent from the heavens. To conclude this story, whoever donated the blood I received saved my life, and though I have no idea who donated that blood, I often wish that I could tell them thank you. The only thing I'm really able to do now is just thank every person I see that donates blood, because I'm sure that whoever gets their blood in the future would also wish to thank them without the ability to do so. No one really knows what happens to their blood after they donate, and those that receive the donations have no idea who their donor was either. It feels a bit disconnected, so I hope that by telling my experience, someone may understand just how important those donations actually are and will be encouraged to donate if they are able to. Without the donation I received, I would have died 8 years ago on this day. I wouldn't exist anymore, this channel would have never existed, and none of you would ever got to hear me tell silly stories or whisper watermelon facts into your ears. If there's anything this experience taught me, it's that life is precious and I never know for sure when it will end. I'll try my best to achieve my dreams now, because the future is not guaranteed. There are so many happy memories and so many amazing people I have met since I almost died as well, and I would have never gotten to experience those things or meet those people if I didn't receive the blood transfusion. Whoever donated to me, I hope you're living a happy life. Thank you for giving me a second chance at mine. I can't guarantee I'll be successful in life, but I can promise that I'll continue to try to do my best to make sure it doesn't go to waste. If you've stuck around to the end, I also want to say thanks for watching. I know this video isn't like my usual videos, so I appreciate you sticking around and listening to the whole thing. I hope you have a wonderful week, and remember, you're one in a melon.